Hey guys, Weeby Newz here, and today I'm going to be discussing this seemingly Danganronpa inspired game called Process of Elimination. It was released in Japan in May of 2021 and is set to be localized and released by NIS America in spring of 2023 on both the Switch and the PS4. The localized trailer and summary were released pretty recently too, and just to get the obvious out of the way, the main character looks exactly like Saihara from V3. And as you'll see, the story and the gameplay is also really similar to Danganronpa 2. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into it. The story is the following. Process of Elimination is a mystery game pitting the Detective Alliance, a group of the world's top criminal investigators, against a serial killer known only as the Quartering Duke. With over 100 victims to his name, fear of the Duke has paralyzed the nation. To restore order and end his reign of terror, the Detective Alliance must put a stop to the spree. Unsuspecting newcomer Wato Hojo stumbles onto the Alliance's get-together on the mysterious Morgue Island, only to find out that the killer lurks amongst them. Now the detectives must prove their own innocence and unveil the Duke's identity before time runs out. It's also notable that on the Japanese website, it specifies that Wato joined the organization because someone called the Roshi Detective one day approached him and stated that he had been chosen as a member of the Detective Alliance. After this, he was forced to sleep and taken to this mysterious island. On the Roshi Detective's character profile, it states that he was involved with the creation of the Detective Alliance. It also mentions that he retired because of a big mistake he made in his judgment regarding a certain incident that led to a large number of deaths, and that now he focuses on recruiting young, promising detectives. I just wanted to point this out to you guys because it seemed pretty important to the story, and it definitely makes the Roshi Detective seem pretty suspicious. In Process of Elimination, players will team up with the 13 members of the Alliance, each with their own unique skills and personalities. Another thing from the Japanese website that I think is important to note is that each detective has their own title that resembles their personality too. For example, the character we play as is called the Incompetent Detective. There's also the Armed Detective, who is named that for obvious reasons. There's the Bungaku Detective, who loves reading and has an excellent memory. And there's the Occult Expert, the Makai Detective. I do want to say these titles that I'm mentioning are through Google Translate, so they're very unlikely to be the one that goes in the official localized version. The titles remind me a lot of the ultimate talents you see in Danganronpa and imply what each character's eccentric personality will revolve around. As for the gameplay, I found this article by Jamatsu, and it's actually from before it was released even in Japan, and it goes through a bunch of the details regarding the gameplay, and some of the words are going to be kind of different for this because it's before the official licensing translation, so I'll try to clarify on screen for those parts. First, there's the adventure part. The story progresses through conversations and choices between the detectives. Then an incident occurs and it looks like somebody dies. So pretty similar to like a BDA. Then there's the investigation simulation part. Direct the detectives and investigate the scene of the incident. And then the fourth part is find the truth part. So kind of similar to a trial where you identify the culprit, use the collected evidence and information. So yeah, pretty similar setup to Danganronpa 2. The article does go further into depth though, explaining these sections, which highlights the differences that this game will have from a Danganronpa game, even though the setup is really similar. During the adventure parts, the story progresses through conversations and choices between the detectives. The members of the Detective Alliance gathered at the headquarters on Morgue Island for a response meeting on the Yatsuzakiko case. However, the Detective Alliance headquarters is destroyed after an attack by the unidentified Yatsuzakiko, and the detectives are isolated. Investigate the leads on the case as you talk with the detectives. So I assume this part is going to be pretty similar to daily life in Danganronpa, where you interact with the other characters and progress the story. It does specify that you progress the story through conversations and choices though, so I'm hoping that means that our choices here will affect the story. It'd be really cool if our choices affected who ended up being the victim for the chapter too, but we will see. Just kind of wanted to mention that. During investigation simulation parts, you investigate the case while directing the detectives like pieces on a game board. The detectives on the map will determine their actions on their own. However, you can only intervene in and change the actions of detectives whose trust you have earned. Each detective has different stats for movement, deduction, verification, cooperation, and investigation, and utilizing each detective's strength is the key to solving the case. So it does seem like it gives you a lot more free will when it comes to controlling the characters during the investigation. It does mention you can only intervene and change the actions of characters who trust you, but I still think it's nice that you get some choice in the matter, and I'm assuming at the beginning of the game you can probably only control like one character, then by the end you can control most of them. I guess most of them might be dead by then, but you know what I mean, you'll probably still get more freedom. It also mentions too that each detective has different stats: movement, deduction, verification, cooperation, and investigation. And then it says that utilizing each detective's strength is the key to solving the case. So based off of this, I'm thinking that depending on how you move people during the investigation, you'll maybe gain like more evidence or more clarity on the case. So hypothetically speaking, let's say there's like 20 pieces of evidence for one case, and then you move the players on the board and you did pretty good but not perfect, so you only got like 18 pieces of evidence. So instead of like a Danganronpa game where there's like a straight path the whole way and you always get all the evidence, it seems like in this one, depending on how you move the detectives, it may make the truth-seeking part a lot easier or a lot more difficult. So if I'm interpreting this section right, I do like the idea that our actions during the investigation affects how the trial goes. I think that's pretty cool. Gives a bit more sense of like player direction. The next section is the threats to the investigation, which is described as obstacles that will stand before the detectives during the investigation simulation parts. There is the attack of the outlaw detective. The outlaw detective moves to pursue the incompetent detective, guide him, draw him away from the other detectives, and use that time to investigate. There's also the impending invisible trap. This is described as an invisible threat that approaches the detectives. Discover and take care of the traps with detectives who specialize in investigation, such as the suffering detective. So I think it's pretty cool that there's stuff you'll have to avoid while investigating. It just mentions that the outlaw detective is moving to pursue you, but I think he honestly might be trying to like just straight up kill you based off of this one screenshot from the trailer, which is pretty cool, you know? It's like, hey, as a protagonist, you can end up as a victim. The investigation part in Danganronpa is probably my least favorite part of the game, because it's just such an info dump. So I do like this idea of having more like control of what you can do and kind of making it a bit more interesting. Also adding in like different threats and stuff will kind of keep you more on your toes, and I feel like will kind of help you stay more alert while you're going through it. Then there's the find the truth part. Deduce the case and find the culprit. By combining the evidence and information collected during the investigation simulation part, you can expose the tricks behind the case, make a deduction, and find the culprit. Making continuous incorrect statements or wrong deductions will lose you the trust of the other detectives and result in a game over. It seems like just depending on how much trust you have with the other detectives is what results in the truth-seeking part concluding or in you having a game over. I do hope there's more CGs for this section though, because in the article that I saw, it only really had pictures of the fireplace. Then there's the glossary. By investigating the world points during adventure parts and investigation simulation parts, you can acquire sayings. By viewing the glossary, you can learn more information about the detectives that appear in the game, as well as the Detective Alliance. Although not required to clear the game, the glossary contains exclusive information not available elsewhere, so be sure to fill it up. The glossary contains a wide range of information related to the investigations, such as the Detective Alliance and detective devices, major cases of the past, such as the Dawnless Night case, and information related to the Yatsuzakiko, such as the Q case. Detective profiles. The detective profile information will be updated as you progress through the story and as you view specific events during investigation simulation parts. Detective profiles contain various information including their real names, hobbies, skills, upbringing, and past careers. So looking at this gameplay and kind of talking about it, it definitely does have a really similar setup to Danganronpa, with there being like an adventure part, then a death, then an investigation, then a truth-seeking part. It really does mirror the Danganronpa formula a lot. And it definitely doesn't help that the main character looks so much like Saihara, dude. Like, if you sent me this little chibi version of him with no context, I would literally just think it was fan art of Saihara. Like, even their outfit is pretty similar. It is nice that there at least seems to be some differences when it comes to each part, though. I especially like the stuff they added to the investigation section, and I look forward to seeing how that part's presented. So overall, I am excited about this game, but I do feel a little torn on whether or not I think it's taking too much inspiration from Danganronpa. Like, on one hand, I really do love, like, death game type of plots, and it's not that I think Danganronpa, like, invented it or anything, but I do feel like the formula in this game is really similar to the Danganronpa formula. Like, I would not be surprised if somebody told me this like originally started out as like a Danganronpa fan game, but then a company picked it up and wanted them to like change it enough to where it could be its own IP. But I do love the Danganronpa structure, and I look forward to seeing them try to like add on top of it. Like I said, I really do think the investigation part sounds pretty cool. Based on the YouTube likes of the Japanese trailer, it did seem like it was received pretty well in Japan, so I'm willing to give it a shot. Unfortunately though, I couldn't find like a more solid like aggregate rating for the game. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Do you think it's borrowing too much from Danganronpa? Or do you think the basic structure of Danganronpa is vague enough to where it doesn't really matter if they borrow from it? But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you think about this game. Are you looking forward to it? Are you not looking forward to it? Let me know why in the comment section below. And if you guys would be interested in me streaming this or trying to let's play it. But yeah, thanks guys for watching this video. Please do leave a like and a comment if you did enjoy it, and I will see you real soon.